Good evening.
Good evening.
One more time. Good evening. Welcome to the September 17, 2018 meeting of the Shawnee Planning Commission. We'll start with roll call. Commissioner Montgomery,
Here.
Commissioner Roth,
Here.
Commissioner Peterson,
Here.
Commissioner Willoughby,
Here.
Commissioner Beanhoff is absent, Commissioner Busby is here, Commissioner Wise,
Here.
Commissioner Braley,
Here.
Commissioner Les Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Mudgett is absent, Commissioner John Smith.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
And to the republic. Visible with liberty and justice for all.
Consent agenda items 1 through 5 are listed under the consent items agenda. Unless there's a request to remove one of these items from the consent agenda, the items will be approved in one motion. Is there a request to remove any items from the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Commissioner Wise.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items per staff's recommendations.
Is there a second? Commissioner Roth? Second. Motion is second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Under new business, S 103-1808, sign variance for sign location. Application was filed by Tracy Bowers of Scooter Coffee, located at 11002 West 75th Street. Doug?
Good evening, Doug Allman, planning staff. Scooter's Coffee is currently under construction and located at 11002 West 75th Street in the Tomahawk Shopping Center. The commercial center is located on the north side of 75th Street, just east of Neiman Road. The applicant has submitted an application for one wall sign for each of the 4 building facades, north, south, east, and west. The sign code allows for the proposed wall signs on the north, south, and east facades. The applicant is requesting a location variance to allow a wall sign on the west facade, which is not directly adjacent to at least 40 feet of off-street parking and/or a two-way drive aisle. The applicant is not requesting a location variance in lieu of a permitted sign on a different elevation. The sign code allows the Planning Commission to grant a sign variance regarding the location of the sign, but does not permit a variance to allow an additional number of signs. The applicant believes the sign variance is warranted because the west building facade is adjacent to the main entrance of the Tomahawk Shopping Center and therefore essential for business identification. Additionally, the applicant states that the variance will have no impact on the public or surrounding properties. The Planning Commission may approve a location variance, and it can be approved if all of the following circumstances are found to apply. One, that the variance is requested to overcome some exceptional condition which poses a particular hardship. Two, that granting the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or improvements in such zoning districts or neighborhoods in which the property is located. And three, that strict application of the sign code would result in practical difficulties or particular hardships inconsistent with the general purpose and intent of this chapter. These practical difficulties or practical hardships must be clearly exhibited. Hardships may include extreme distance from the street or obstruction of visibility by other buildings or other natural features and the like. And so what they're requesting is a sign here. There will be a sign here permitted by code. There would be a sign on the opposite side of the building. And in this case, they have made application for a sign on the rear of the building. But in no circumstance can the Planning Commission approve more than 3 signs on this particular building. So in essence, if you determine that the variance is necessary and warranted, they would need to move one of their allowed signs to that facade. That completes our presentation.
Thank you, Doug. Is the applicant present? You'd come forward and state your name and address, please.
Hi, thank you for having us. My name is Tracy Bowens. It's spelled wrong in the agenda. It's Bowens. And my address is 11669 South Chestnut Street, Olathe, Kansas, 66061.
Tracy, you heard staff recommendations on this?
Yeah.
Correct. Thank you.
So as you can see from the building, the way it sits, our primary customer flow will come from 75th Street. And so for us, the primary signage that is the most important would be both the east and the west side, so traffic coming from either direction can identify what the building actually is. And those sides would be channel letter signs. The front facade would have, facing 75th, would have our logo sign. And then if we were granted the east and west sides, we would remove the logo sign, the round logo sign from the back, or I believe that's the north end facade of the building.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for applicant or staff? Commissioner Peterson?
I'm not sure if it's applicant or staff. So currently, you have Scooter's Coffee going on the east side.
Correct.
And then logos on the north and the south.
Right.
Is there a problem with not just moving the logo sign to the west side, or can it change as long as it's within the definition of size? But it's irrelevant what type of sign it can. It's irrelevant. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for applicant or staff?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In looking at the picture, there's a monument sign for Walmart and the Vietnamese Cafe. Are you going to have any signage out front other than on your building?
Can you address that?
No?
No.
Okay. Just kind of throwing out a thought. I would probably defer to what the business owner feels is the most appropriate places for them to put their sign, especially being that they're not going to have any other identifying markers at the street because there will be no additional signage for them.
Very fine. Any other questions for applicant or staff? Commissioner Braley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Your preference for having 3 signs is to have it on the west, the east, and the south.
Correct.
Okay.
And particularly important to us on the west because that's the main entrance in and out of the center. And so by having no signage on that building, people coming in and out of there really, it'd be tough to identify what we were.
No, I agree with that. Okay, thank you.
I want to make sure we're all on the same page here, but the 4th sign is not going to work. And you're understanding that?
My understanding with the code is it's not allowed,
Correct.
and there's not even the possibility for a variance on that.
Correct. There's no way for us to even vote a 4th sign in.
Yeah, so our plan would be to do the east and west side and then the south side,
South
facing
side, so
75th
east, west,
Street.
and south side, and the sign would be according to our sign requirements on it. Okay,
Right.
very good. Any other questions for applicant or staff? Commissioner Peterson?
This would be a staff question. Scooters is a drive-through. I love them.
Thank you.
Is there going to be anything on the north side of the property denoting where the drive-through goes in?
They're allowed a directional sign that's very small.
Right.
And they'll be allowed an order board that is allowed without a permit.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for applicant or staff? If not, we would be in commission discussion. Thank you. Commissioner Peterson?
So basically, according to our sign code, they're allowed 3 signs. It depicts which sides they're on, so
Correct.
we're just creating a variance to say that they're allowed to move one of those 3 sign locations.
Correct,
and
that's what
it.
we have been doing, and when we do something like a variance like this, we also, in your motion, we want to explain why we did, so it's just not a, hey, we can move it. That there needs to be an explanation in a motion saying, this is what we saw that reflected why we would allow it to be moved. So since we're in commission discussion and we're lacking right now, would someone care to make a motion? Commissioner Peterson?
Drew the short stick. I move that we approve S-103-18-08 sign variance for Scooters Coffee located on West 75th Street from the code allowable 3 signs on the north, the east, and the south to move the north signage to the west side of the building because it doesn't interfere with anything. It gives a better direction to what the building is due to its street location.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Les Smith?
Second?
The motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
I just couldn't let the first time pass. I just want to reiterate, I mean, especially looking at this visual, the intent of what we do is to help businesses be successful, and clearly eastbound traffic, I think it'd make a huge difference to have a sign on that side of the building. So definitely we'll be supporting Commissioner Peterson's motion.
Any further discussion? If not, the motion is for approval of a sign variance for location on S103-18-08, sign variance for Scooters Coffee, 11002 West 75th Street for Scooters Coffee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you.
Welcome.
Other new business, Z041809, rezoning from AG Agriculture to PSF Planned Single Family. Z051809, rezoning from Agriculture to Residential Estates, Agriculture and Residential Estates to Professional Office and Pre-Plat 091809, preliminary plat approval for a 76.8 acre parcel of land on the east side of the 7,900 to 8,000 blocks of Monticello Road. The applicant is filed by Phelps Engineering for Bristol Highlands LLC. Mark?
Good evening, Mark Zilsdorf, City Planning staff. Tonight I'm going to break this up into 3 parts. I'm going to recover the residential rezoning factors, then I'm going to go into the professional office rezoning factors, and then follow up with a review of the preliminary plat. The agricultural to planned single-family rezoning, the requested area of rezoning is 71.4 acre property. The applicant requests rezoning from agricultural to planned single-family. The request is to develop a 136-lot residential, single-family residential subdivision. This would be a continuation of the existing Bristol Ridge West and proposed Bristol Highlands subdivision located to the south within the city of Lenexa. The subject property is undeveloped and consists of wooded rolling hills with small stream channels traversing across it. Property to the north and east is zoned agricultural and undeveloped. Property to the south is within the city of Lenexa. The Lenexa property is zoned RP1, or Residential Plan Single Family, and is or will be developed with single-family homes within the existing phases of Bristol Ridge West and the proposed Bristol Highlands subdivisions. Property to the west, between the subject property and Monticello Road, is zoned residential estates, residential suburban, and agricultural. The residential estate zone parcel to the southwest is developed with an older single-family home and outbuilding that the applicant owns and will have removed from the property as part of the overall development. The two residential suburban zone parcels to the northwest are developed with single-family homes. The remaining property is zoned agricultural and remains undeveloped. Property west of Monticello Road is zoned planned industrial and is developed with a 3-and-2 baseball complex. The land use guide of the comprehensive plan designates this site as appropriate for low-density residential development. The applicant proposes to develop the property as a single-family residential subdivision that will combine with the adjacent subdivisions he is developing to the south within Lenexa. This plat provides a gross density of 1.9 dwelling units per acre, which is within the low-density residential range defined as 1 to 5 dwelling units per acre. Therefore, the rezoning request conforms with the land use guide. The character of the area will change as a result of the rezoning. However, the rezoning should have little, if any, detrimental effect upon surrounding properties. This property is part of a large undeveloped area between Monticello Road and Woodland Road that has long been expected to be developed in a low-density residential manner, and is a use that the city desires in this general area. The development of single-family homes is the predominant land use anticipated for this area, and the requested zoning is similar to the existing RP1 zoning on the adjacent property in the city of Lenexa. Denial of the request would not appear to benefit the health and welfare of the community. The proposed development is compatible with existing and anticipated development patterns in the area. It provides a quality, low-density residential plan that blends seamlessly with the adjacent development to the south and fits well with the given topography and stream corridors on the property. For the rezoning factors for the professional office, the requested area of rezoning is a 5.4 acre parcel. The applicant requests rezoning from agricultural and RE to professional office. The request is to develop a 3-lot office and service subdivision. The applicant has provided a conceptual site plan to indicate how the lots may be developed, although a final site plan nor any users have been determined at this point. The applicant has, however, indicated they are working on a sports and wellness complex with an indoor sports field and recreation facility and office suites for fitness-focused service providers. The subject property is developed with an older single-family home and outbuilding. The site is somewhat challenging, given its relatively shallow lot depth and the significant grade change from Monticello Road down to the stream channel. Property to the north and east is zoned agricultural and is undeveloped and consists of the applicant's property with a request to rezone to planned single family. Property to the south is within the city of Lenexa. This property is zoned RP1 and part of the applicant's future Bristol Ridge development. Further south, adjacent to Monticello Road, is a proposed daycare facility on property zoned CPO, or Planned General Office, within the Bristol Ridge West development. The subject property fronts onto Monticello Road, and property west of Monticello Road is zoned planned industrial and developed with a 3-and-2 baseball complex. The land use guide of the comprehensive plan designates this site as appropriate for commercial development. The applicant proposes to develop the property with 3 lots for an indoor sports and wellness focused complex. The requested professional office zoning designation and the proposed uses conform with the land use guide. Although the adjacent property in Lenexa was recently rezoned to RP1 with the preliminary plat for the applicant's Bristol Highlands plan, the Lenexa future land use guide indicates an office employment center designation as appropriate for this area to the south. The character of the area will change as a result of the rezoning. However, the rezoning should have little, if any, detrimental effect upon surrounding properties. In accordance with the city's comprehensive plan, it has been expected that this area adjacent to Monticello Road would be developed in a commercial manner. While final development plans for the 3 proposed lots have not been completed, it is anticipated to fill a future need for local office and service-type uses. Denial of the request would not appear to benefit the health and welfare of the community. The proposed development is compatible with anticipated development patterns in the area. The professional office designation provides a logical transition between the less intense proposed planned single-family zoning to the east and the existing more intense planned industrial zoning to the west across Monticello Road. The stream corridor provides a natural buffer and a boundary between the residential and office uses, and it allows a viable use to be developed on a difficult property given the existing topography and limited depth between Monticello Road and the stream corridor. As far as the review of the preliminary plat, the plat contains 139 lots and 9 tracts on 76.8 acres. The single-family portion contains 136 lots and 9 tracts on 71.4 acres, while the office portion contains 3 lots on 5.4 acres. Land use guide of the comprehensive plan anticipates low-density residential development for the vast majority of the area, with commercial uses being shown appropriate adjacent to Monticello Road. Plan defines low density as 1 to 5 dwelling units per acre. The plat provides a single-family residential development with a density of 1.9 dwelling units per acre and provides 3 lots for office use adjacent to Monticello Road. Therefore, the proposed uses and density conform with the land use guide. All bulk requirements have been satisfied. The plat contains 136 residential lots that range in size from 9,410 square feet to 21,656 square feet, exceeding the minimum lot size of 6,600 square feet. In accordance with the ordinance, no more than 1/3 of the lots can be between 60 and 65 feet in width, and at least 1/3 of the lots shall be greater than 70 feet in width. None of the lots proposed are between 60 and 65 feet. And 124 of the lots, or 91% of them, are greater than 70 feet in width. All structures will be set back a minimum of 30 feet from the subdivision boundary, which meets the peripheral setback requirement of this zoning district, and front building setbacks are platted at 25 feet. Side yard setbacks shall be a minimum of 7 feet, and rear setbacks shall be 30 feet. All lots meet or exceed the minimum requirements of the planned single-family zoning district. The professional office zoned lots range in size from 1.1 acres to 2.9 acres, with frontage along a public street ranging from 105 feet to 397 feet. Code requires a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet with a 100-foot frontage along a public street. Front building setbacks are platted at 30 feet adjacent to Monticello Road, and side setbacks shall be a minimum of 20 feet with both side yards together at least 50 feet, and rear setbacks shall be 35. All lots exceed the minimum requirements in the professional office zoning district. The plat contains 9 tracts totaling 18.5 acres. The larger tracts are located primarily along the stream corridors. These tracts will contain stormwater management easements, stormwater quality facilities, and stream corridor buffers. Tract A will also provide space for subdivision amenities near the main entrance from Monticello Road. All of the tracts, with the exception of Tract G, will be dedicated as private open space and may contain landscaping, fencing, monumentation, and subdivision amenities. They will be owned and maintained by a homes association. And in total, open space tracts make up over 25% of the residential development area. The applicant has indicated that this development may be done in phases. The first phase is shown to be an extension from the Bristol Highland and Bristol Ridge West developments in Lenexa. Mill Ridge Street and Round Prairie Street will be extended north out of the Lenexa phases and include portions of 80th Terrace, Payne Street, and 80th Street. This phase would include approximately 46 lots and Tract I. And just generally, that phase 1 is this area right here. Be these 2 street connections and then the lots adjacent to those. The applicant has provided 6 different home designs that represent the homes to be built in this development. Additional designs may be added later. The home styles include reverse 1.5-story, 1.5-story, and 2-story options, a variety of architectural elements with materials that include stone or brick, stucco, and lap and shake style siding elements on the front elevations. The homes range in size from 2,451 square feet to 3,245 square feet. In accordance with the SMC Chapter 17.23, no more than 20% of the homes constructed in this development shall use the same front elevation. Just to give you just a real quick idea of what they're looking like. There will be 5 points of access serving this subdivision. Primary access will be provided from Monticello Road with the construction of 80th Street. This street will serve as a minor residential collector running east and west through the development. It is intended with future development to the east that 80th Street will eventually provide a connection to Woodland Drive. Mill Ridge Street and Round Prairie Street will be extended north out of the Lenexa phases of this development, providing access from the south. Payne Street will be stubbed at the north subdivision boundary with expectation that this street will continue north with future development of the adjacent property. The proposed lot layout, points of access, and street network with this development are acceptable for circulation and public safety purposes. The city has conducted an internal review of the traffic generated by the Bristol Highlands North development. The proposed development's roadway network and Monticello Road will be sufficient to handle traffic created by the development. All internal streets, with the exception of 80th Street, shall comply with the geometric and roadway design standards for local residential streets. The conceptual layout, street layouts provided are sufficient, as are the proposed centerline grades and vertical curve information provided with the preliminary plats. 80th Street shall comply with modified geometric and roadway design standards for a minor residential collector street. The storm drainage improvements required for this development shall be designed in accordance with the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual. The enclosed components of the drainage system must be designed to convey the stormwater runoff from a 10% or 10-year return period design storm, or from a 4% 25-year return period design storm when the upstream tributary is larger than 40 acres. The overflow component shall be designed to convey the runoff from a 1% or 100-year return period design storm. The preliminary plat for this development included a preliminary storm drainage study and a conceptual storm layout design. A complete hydrologic and hydraulic drainage table will need to be prepared in accordance with the standards of the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual for the storm drainage improvement plans required for each final plat. The applicant has submitted a preliminary stormwater detention study showing a conceptual layout of the detention facility, a drainage area map, and estimated storage volumes and allowable release rates. The preliminary study is substantially complete and adequate for reviewing the preliminary plat. The majority of the detention for this project will be located off-site in the city of Lenexa. The 2 detention facilities located off-site will over-detain stormwater upstream of the project to allow a majority of the Shawnee portion of the project to have direct release. This proposed method of detention still adheres to the City of Shawnee stormwater detention design criteria that requires the cumulative post-development release rates do not exceed the cumulative pre-development release rates at the downstream off-site discharge points. Prior to a final plan approval from the City of Shawnee, the applicant will be required to provide written verification that the City of Lenexa has approved the final stormwater detention plans for the Lenexa portion of the project. A 3rd detention facility will be located online in an existing channel that will remain as part of this project. This detention facility is being constructed to primarily detain the 100-year storm and ensure the post-development release rate does not exceed the pre-development release rate downstream. This development is subject to provisions of SMC Chapter 11.16 Stormwater Treatment. which pertains to the implementation of stormwater treatment facilities to preserve and enhance the quality of stormwater runoff. This development is required to satisfy a minimum level of service of 6.1 based on the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual. The applicant is proposing the use of preserved native vegetation, vegetative filter strips, and a proprietary stormwater treatment unit and bioretention cells to meet the required level of service. This development is subject to provisions of SMC Chapter 1132 floodplain management, which pertain to the development within a special flood hazard area as designated by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and the provisions of the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual, which pertain to development within other flood-prone areas. 3 unnamed tributaries of Mill Creek Tributary D traverse the entire subdivision. 2 additional unnamed tributaries have their headwaters within the subdivision. Flood studies are required for all new developments within Shawnee that are larger than 5 acres or contain 50 lots or more, and accordingly, the landowner is responsible for preparing a study to be approved prior to recording of the final plats. The landowner has proposed to preserve all of the stream corridors within the development with the exception of 1, which has a watershed of roughly 7 acres. All buffer areas within this development, with the exception of the 2 proposed road crossings for 80th Street, shall be preserved as open space, especially dense stands of native vegetation within the first 25 feet closest to the top of stream bank. No stormwater detention facility or stormwater treatment facility required for this development shall extend into a stream corridor buffer, and all proposed stream crossings, including approved roadways, shall be constructed in accordance with Shawnee Design and Construction Manual. All utilities shall be placed underground. In an effort to preserve as many of the existing trees as possible, particularly at the rear of the lots that back up to the stream corridors, the applicant is requesting that utilities be allowed in the front yard areas in easements adjacent to the right-of-way for many of the lots. The applicant has provided a typical landscape plan showing how utility pedestal clusters will be screened in the front yard areas. Given the nature of this plan, with the majority of the lots backing up to stream corridors, staff believes this is a reasonable request and is supportive of it. Construction traffic for this development shall use the nearest major streets to access the site. Construction traffic should access the site via Monticello Road. However, based on the phasing plan for this development, access for the first phase will only be available from the residential streets located south in Bristol Highlands. Once construction of 80th Street begins as part of a later phase, all construction traffic shall access the site via Monticello Road at 80th Street and discontinue use of the residential streets located in Bristol Highlands. This development is subject to provisions of Shawnee Municipal Code Chapter 1226, which pertains to the city's excise tax on new subdivision plats. The total estimated excise tax for this development, less any credits, is $710,730, based on a taxable area of 3,305,721 square feet at a current rate of 21.5 cents per square foot. No public streets to be constructed as part of this project are classified as major streets. Therefore, the cost of street improvements are not eligible as a credit against the excise tax. Monticello Road, however, is classified as a major street, and as such, the right-of-way for this street, the right-of-way dedicated as part of this development shall be excluded from the excise tax calculation. The excise tax is due prior to obtaining the mayor's signature on a signature copy of the final plat. The developer may enter into an excise tax abatement agreement with the city that would allow for the suspension, partial or in full, of the excise tax that is due, provided the final plat is approved and recorded prior to expiration of the suspension of the excise tax as set by the city. This agreement between the property owner and the city shall be created, agreed upon, and executed prior to obtaining the mayor's signature on the recording copy of the final plat. And this subdivision is also subject to provisions of SMC 1214, the Park and Recreational Land Use Fund, open space fees in the amount of $400 per residential lot, which is $54,400, and 4 cents per square foot of lot area for the professional office zone lots, or $8,405, shall be paid prior to the issuance of a building permit. Just a second. As far as staff's recommendation, I'm going to read three separate recommendations this evening regarding the two zonings and the preliminary plat. And then when we get to the end of that, we'll need to have three separate actions taken by the commission. As far as staff's recommendation, staff recommends approval of Z-04-18-09 rezoning from AG Agricultural to PSF Plan Single Family, subject to the following condition. Approval of the rezoning by the City Council and publication of the rezoning ordinance as required by state statute. Staff's second recommendation, the staff recommends approval of Z-05-18-09, rezoning from AG Agricultural and RE Residential Estates to PO Professional Office, subject to the following condition. Approval of the rezoning by the City Council and publication of the rezoning ordinance as required by state statute. The third recommendation, staff also recommends approval of pre-plat -09-18-09 preliminary plat for Bristol Highlands, subject to the following conditions. Number one, acceptance of the dedications on the final plat by the Shawnee governing body and recording of the final plat or plats with the Johnson County Register of Deeds shall be completed prior to issuance of any building permits. Number two, the preliminary plat contains 136 planned single-family zone lots, 3 professional office zone lots, and 9 tracts on 76.78 acres. Number 3, all bulk regulations of the planned single-family zoning district shall be met for lots 1 through 136. Minimum lot size shall be 6,600 square feet, with no more than 1/3 of the lots having a lot frontage of 60 to 65 feet in width, and at least 1/3 of the lots having frontages greater than 70 feet in width. Front setbacks of 25 feet, rear setbacks of 30 feet, and side yard setbacks of 7 feet shall be maintained. Number 4, all bulk regulations of the professional office zoning district shall be met for lots 137 through 139. Minimum lot size shall be 10,000 square feet with a minimum lot frontage of 100 feet in width. Minimum front setback shall be 30 feet. The total width of both side yards shall be at least 50 feet with no side yard less than 20 feet, and rear setback shall be a minimum of 35 feet. 5, the applicant shall submit final copies of the declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions and home association documents that includes provisions for the ownership, administration, and maintenance of the common tracts with the application of the first final plat. Number 6, in accordance with SMC Chapter 17.23, no more than 20% of the homes constructed in this development shall use the same front elevation. Number 7, public street improvements, street lighting system, and storm drainage improvements required for this development shall be designed and constructed in accordance with the standards of the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual and as detailed within the staff report. Number 8, the applicant is responsible for submitting a detailed streetlight, storm improvement plans for review and acceptance by the city prior to preparing the recording copies of each final plat. Number 9, this development is subject to provisions of SMC Chapter 1116, stormwater treatment, which pertains to the implementation of stormwater treatment facilities to preserve and enhance the quality of stormwater runoff. This development is required to satisfy a minimum level of service of 6.1 based on the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual. Stormwater treatment facility requirements for this development will be addressed as a whole and not broken into individual requirements for each plat. All STFs required for this development shall be designed in accordance with the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual and as detailed within the staff report. The applicant's consulting engineer is responsible for certifying both the design and construction of such facilities complies with all applicable regulations. Number 10, the development is subject to provisions of SMC Chapter 1124, stormwater detention, which pertains to the construction and maintenance of on-site stormwater detention facilities. Prior to final plan approval from the City of Shawnee, the applicant will be required to provide written verification that the City of Lenexa has approved the final stormwater detention plans for the 2 detention facilities located off-site on the Lenexa side. All 3 stormwater detention facilities serving this site will be required to be as-built and certified by the engineer prior to issuance of building permits for the subdivision. The as-built shall be prepared in accordance with the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual. Number 11, this development is subject to provisions of SMC Chapter 11.32, floodplain management, which pertain to the development within a special flood hazard area as designated by the Federal Emergency Management Agency. The provisions of the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual, which pertains to the development within other flood-prone areas and is detailed within the staff report. Number 12, the applicant is responsible for submitting a flood study for review and acceptance by the city prior to recording the final plat. 13, all stream corridor buffers are to be preserved and maintained in accordance with the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual and is detailed within the staff report. 14, all utilities shall be placed underground. 15, telephone, electric, and cable service utility pedestals will be allowed within the front yard area for this development to preserve existing trees along the rear of the lots. Landscape screening of the pedestals is required prior to occupancy permits for the homes in which the pedestals are located. 16, this development is subject to provisions of SMC Chapter 11.20, Land Disturbance Activity, which pertains to site grading and erosion control measures. The applicant is responsible for obtaining a land disturbance permit as required by Codes Administration prior to undertaking any land disturbance or construction activities on the development site. The site grading and erosion control measures depicted on those plans must be prepared in accordance with SMC Chapter 15.04 International Building Code, the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual, and all other applicable policy statements and administrative rules. 17, the applicant is responsible for scheduling a pre-design meeting with development services staff prior to preparing any public improvement plans. Individual sets of final street, storm drainage, and street lighting plans must be submitted to the city for review and approval prior to commencing construction work on the site. These plans shall be prepared according to the standards in the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual. 18, construction traffic shall use the nearest major streets to access the site. Construction traffic should access the site via Monticello Road. However, based on the phasing plan for this development, access for the first phase will only be available from the residential streets located south in Bristol Highlands. Once construction of 80th Street begins as part of a later phase, all construction traffic shall access the site via Monticello Road to 80th Street and discontinue use of the residential streets located in Bristol Highlands to the south. Number 19, all public improvements for this development shall be constructed according to the applicable standards in the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual. A public improvement permit will be required for all public street, storm, and streetlight improvements. Building permits will not be released for each plat in this development until all public improvements associated with that plat have been completed and accepted by the city. Number 20, all fire hydrants with compliant fire flows and fire lanes as required by the fire department shall be approved prior to issuance of a building permit. Minimum fire flow and flow duration shall be as specified in Table B 105.1 of the International Fire Code. And fire flow is measured at a 20 psi residual pressure. And number 21, the provisions of the excise tax shall be satisfied prior to the mayor signing the recording copies of the final plat. The developer may enter into an excise tax abatement agreement with the city that would allow for the suspension, partial or in full, of the excise tax provided the final plat is approved and recorded prior to the expiration of the suspension of the excise tax as set by the city. This agreement between property owner and the city shall be created, agreed upon, and executed prior to obtaining the mayor's signature on the recording copy of the final plat. Open space fees in the amount of $400 per residential lot and 4 cents per square foot of commercial or office lot area, or the current open space fee rate in effect at the time a building permit is applied for, shall be paid prior to issuance of a building permit as provided by Shawnee Municipal Code 12.14. And finally, number 23, the applicant is responsible for obtaining all such permits as may be required by all federal, state, and local agencies, including but not limited to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, Kansas Division of Water Resources, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mark. Is the applicant present? You'd come forward and state your name and address, please, sir.
Tim Tucker, Tucker, with Phelps Engineering, 1270 North Winchester, Olathe, Kansas. I'm here
you.
speaking on behalf of Bristol Highlands LLC. The developer, Jeff Robinson's also here to help answer any questions. I really don't have any kind of formal presentation. The staff did a great job explaining the project. Maybe the only other thing I might add is Mark had touched on it, on the stipulations on the construction traffic. That was a concern that the existing neighbors have. Where is it coming from so it doesn't go through the existing subdivision, which is also one of Jeff's subdivisions. So we're limiting our construction to access to this entrance right here. until we get this entrance constructed, which will be in the second or third phase. So right now, we're working on a project just south of here, which is 50 to 60 acres in Lenexa, which is also Bristol Highlands. So it's all part of the same project. It's just half of it happens to be in Shawnee and half in Lenexa. So we're going to limit all the construction over there. We'll be building that entrance prior to doing the Shawnee project. So we'll have access there. Other than that, I'd be willing to answer any questions you may have.
The first question is, are you in agreement with staff recommendations?
I'm in agreement with stipulations 1 through 23, yes.
We're only 23, I hope, or you're going to make me look now, aren't you? Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for applicant or staff? Commissioner John Smith.
This question, I think, is for staff. Monticello Road is not necessarily a very good road to start with. What's the city's plan for that? Is it in the capital improvement plan or anything to widen that? And
The Monticello Road is in the capital improvement plans to be improved up to Shawnee Mission Parkway. It does not include any portion of this part of Monticello Road that would be adjacent to this subdivision. Because it's this portion of Monticello is already improved from 83rd up to about 75th, I believe it is.
but nothing north of that is improved,
Currently, at this time, that is correct.
which really looks like that is a bottleneck then.
I believe majority of the traffic out of this will probably head south to get to 83rd and then head east or west.
On the 21, 22 capital improvement plans are probably by the time.
The extension of Monticello to the north, yeah. So that's correct. So by the time this connection is made out to Monticello, that will probably be completed. Thank you, Paul.
Go ahead, Mr. John Smith.
If I may, this question is really for the applicant. You know, looking at this property, there are probably it's difficult to figure out, but is there some existing homes back in what you're going to develop, or is this all naked, undeveloped land?
No, it's all, it's pretty well treed, fully treed.
Okay. I was curious if there were any existing homes, what would happen to them?
Just one on Monticello, and it'll be removed. It's over there in the professional office area.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Peterson.
I realize we're at the preliminary plat phase and that type of thing, but I did have some questions about the flooding and the FEMA requirements, and I know that you're going to dig into that. Could what you find once you get in there reduce the number of lots or increase the number of lots? Do you have any feelings on what you're going to find once you actually get in there and in respect to creating a flooding issue, or is there a proposal for a detention pond, or do you know?
We do have detention, and we have already looked at we've already done a flood study on it. So the lots that we've got laid out right now are outside the 100-year ultimate floodplain. We have 3 detention basins proposed to provide detention for both Shawnee and Lenexa. So we've got 2 of them that are located here and here that are just on there and
They're on the
there, just
Lenexa
located on the Lenexa side. And then the third one is the inline one that Mark was talking about right here.
Right.
And that one is, I'd say 95% of all detention is provided in the Lenexa portion of it. We added that one in to make sure that we could meet the 100-year. We were just short, so we needed it. So how that is modeled is, it's not, we're trying to leave all the trees in the stream corridor.
Okay.
So what we did is just modeled the street culvert crossing there. So it's designed per standard design for Shawnee, but it provides a minimal amount of detention in the 100-year, so we're taking account for that.
Go ahead, Commissioner Peterson.
Secondary question is, there was 80th Street, which I understand is going to be constructed later, and I get that, and glad I don't live in Lenexa off of that street, just saying. But I noticed that the width of that street is basically the minimum for the two, is the 28 feet or whatever. That's going to be highly traveled, and especially if it extends down to Woodland. Are you looking at, I also noticed that there was a notation about sidewalks on the side of the street leading to the proposed elementary school or whatever. What are your plans for that? I mean, where are you looking to do that? I can't tell from here. I understand it's preliminary.
Not sure, you're talking about elementary school?
There's
There
notation
is
in
no
here.
proposed elementary school. Basically, the city's policy when we lay out locations of sidewalks, since we have sidewalks on one side of the street.
Right.
The general policy, general rule is that we locate the sidewalks on the side that would be closest to the nearest existing or proposed elementary school.
Right.
And we also look at existing patterns. There's no existing or proposed elementary school in this area at this time.
Okay. Thanks.
Commissioner Roth.
So I have a couple questions. This is probably more geared towards the Nexus side of this, but is that currently zoned all residential and part of that professional office as well? That shows where that parking lot's at. Is that correct? And is that already rezoned to match
It's
those?
single-family residential, and then it's got an element of twin villas that would, this portion right here would be single-family. As you move towards 83rd Street, you get into twin villas. The entrance off of 83rd Street has right now a commercial lot or a large residential lot that's proposed for assisted living. And then as you go over on Monticello, there is a commercial office.
And the second part, do you know if there's any plans for Lenexa to put a stoplight there on 83rd and Monticello?
I don't.
Okay. You just see that being a pretty high traffic. I've been stuck over on that intersection for quite a while, so. And it's just gonna get worse. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for applicant or staff? Commissioner John Smith?
As you, I think it's commendable that you're going to try to save as many trees as possible, and the staff is recommending allowing utilities to be put in the front lawns. But as you increase in rooftops and the streets, you're increasing the amount of runoff. Are you doing anything in your plans to reduce the erosion that will hurt? Because it sounds like you're using the existing flow of water streams. Are you doing anything such as rocking those drainage ditches or anything?
Not down on the ditches themselves. I mean, we would have energy dissipation at the discharge points from the storm pipe, but once it's in the channel, we won't be doing anything. It's hard to get permitting on that, for one thing, because the Corps doesn't want you in there.
Well, I'm living on one of the earlier property additions out west, and we have problems with erosion because they're not rocked in. And now it's when the common space is turned over to the homeowners association after the build-out, it's up to us to try to address that and find the funds. So I would encourage you to look into that. And if I could follow up with another question. You mentioned the homeowners association. Is this a new one or an existing? There's nothing there now, so it's one that you will be setting up?
It'll be a new one. And then it'll be combined with the Lenexa portion as one whole.
Thank you.
Any other question for applicant or staff? I have one, a follow-up question on 80th Street. Could you point out 80th Street on there? Right. So why did you, I'm guessing you wanted 80th Street to be narrower than it normally would be? No? Can somebody explain why 80th Street is going to be narrower? I mean, it's really going through your whole project, so why are we allowing it to be? We're not? Okay.
It's not going to be narrower. It's not being built to a local residential street because it's going to act as a minor residential collector.
Okay.
Normally, a minor residential collector is 31 feet back to back, but that allows for on-street parking and it allows from some lot access onto that. This particular design has no lot access onto that street, and they are not going to allow parking on either side of 80th Street. Therefore, city staff was comfortable with what they considered a modified residential collector that would allow them the 28 feet within the 50-foot right-of-way.
And what are there going to be signs or something that say no parking on this street?
They would be signed as no parking on 80th.
Have we utilized anything else to keep no parking on what would be a public street? I mean, realistically, if I was over there and I'm driving up a public street, I would think I could park there unless there were signs. But are we doing anything else? Is there something else we do as a city?
Not that I'm aware of, but there would really be, I mean, the way this is laid out, there's really no, I mean, none of the lots really front onto that, so there's really no need to park on 80th Street on either side of it. And it's, like I said, it's going to act more as a collector to push people through.
And I'm assuming then that the developer would be responsible for putting up the no parking on this, no
Yes.
parking on the streets? Very fine. Thank you for the clarification. Commissioner Brayley?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, since you brought that up, that's kind of raised a question for me that won't surprise my other planning commissioners. But now with 80th Street, now that you were using the term pushing traffic through there and there's going to be a little bit more flow going through, is it anticipated, at least on 80th Street, that there will be sidewalks on both sides of 80th Street?
Currently, there's a sidewalk on one side. It's on the north side of the street.
Well,
Because it
knowing
is
that,
only it's only a minor residential collector. We only require sidewalks on both sides for major collectors.
okay, I know that's what the requirement is, and we've had this conversation, but I'm sitting there thinking from, it seems like it's dividing the development, north-south. You're going to have a lot of traffic moving through there. There's going to obviously be no parking, but I'm thinking of the safety of the residents, and, if you're going to go walk, or if you have kids in the area, as best as you can keep them off the streets. If I'm hearing that there's going to be a lot of flow through that street, I'm just offering up to the engineer, to the developer, if they would consider that, because I know it's, I'm trying without showing, if you were on the northern side on one of those little loops there and you just wanted to do a walk, or your kid was going to walk to another part of the neighborhood that was still on that north side, you're going to require them to either walk in the street or cross the street to get to a sidewalk, to move in the east-west location to then get to another part of the subdivision. So that's my only concern. It's not a requirement, obviously, but it's certainly something that's, I would just ask that you look at as a possibility. You know your residents and what they're looking for. You've been in development for 30 years. But I'm looking to the future. We're talking about walkable communities. We don't know what it's going to be like in 20 years or 30 years and how far that's going to go. We have it is striped as a bike lane on Monticello. I can, when that's going to happen and when we do more improvement, I can only assume that there's going to be more walkable, bikeable communities. So that's only my comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Peterson?
Commissioner Brayley touched on that, and with 80th Street being a little more narrow, and I understand it, but you're going to ask bike traffic to be on that without a lane because it's not wide enough to accommodate a lane. So, and I understand bikes are like cars, but I just think that I understand we're in the preliminary plat, and I understand your concept and where you're going, I might want to rethink that as making that a little more friendly in the final situation where there's perhaps a bike lane, perhaps 2 sidewalks, just because if Monticello is going to open up for a striped bike lane, how are you going to get there? I mean, you're going to ride in the street, and you've got kids and older people and me, which is bad. But it's just a thought that is where we're going, and if we could think of a way of accommodating that, that'd be great.
Any other questions for applicant or staff? Commissioner Montgomery?
Follow up to this line of questioning, how does the city determine whether it's a minor or a major residential collector? Is it traffic, anticipated traffic?
Well, the city has a circulation plan that we review every year, that staff reviews along with our engineering staff and our traffic manager. And they determine which links will be major collectors, which one will be minor residential collectors, which ones will be arterials. 83rd Street obviously acts as a major street running east and west to the south. And then the circulation plan will have 75th Street or 79th or 75th Street running east and west to the north of this will be a major collector. So this is kind of a mid-block, if you will, between 2 major streets.
Mr. Chairman? Mark, or Paul or Doug, what is the mechanism for, I mean, no parking is going to have to be approved by the governing body via an ordinance. Will that be as part of this approval, or will they have to agree to no parking on that street as a separate ordinance?
There'll be a separate ordinance, and they'll make the determination when the street's improved, whether they're gonna mark it or not.
Okay. So if this is approved the way it is, and if the governing body determines not to enact an ordinance restricting parking on that street, then that kind of somewhat blows the concept. What do we do then?
I mean, in all honesty, it's still wider than a local residential street. It's a local residential street's 27 feet. This is going to be 28. So, I mean, it's really not much more than a local residential street. We just, with the engineering staff and talking with the developer, we talked about doing this modified plan.
My guess is when the final plat comes in.
Right.
Between now and that time, we'll have some discussions with our traffic engineer, and he'll make the recommendations to you as to what he really thinks is appropriate or not.
Yeah, and I'm not even really.
This is a whole different
Sure it
street
is.
design than they've done before that they're trying, so.
Yeah, and I'm not even contesting that at all. I just know that there's a process for getting no parking on the street. And if it's not part of this, it has to be a separate ordinance, that in some way, shape, or form should be addressed, if we're going to be asked to approve this without being part of the concept, that's all. Just for my own edification and a point to ponder. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Any other questions for applicant or staff? If not, then we would be in public hearing. And the public hearing has to do with the rezoning, both rezonings. If you come forward, state your name and address, please. Mark?
If they will sign their name and address on this pad, either before or after they speak.
And ask for legible, too.
Legible,
We've learned
please.
that. We want legible, too.
Okay, my name is Bill Conan, and I live at 21210 West 81st Terrace in Lenexa. I represent the Homes Association that represents Bristol Ridge West on the Lenexa side. And as we've heard from the developer's representative about the plans for this development, we're in support of the single-family homes. We think it's a great fit on that side of us. But we are very concerned about the 2 entrances that are going to be through our subdivision, especially the Mill Ridge one, which is, if I can figure out how to put my finger on this, it's the one that comes through down here. That's a residential street that curves, and it has really 4 turns before you even get to an outlet to 83rd. And what we know from past experience, and I appreciate the good intentions of the city of Shawnee and the city of Lenexa, dictating that construction equipment can't move through there, it will anyway. Because when they were developing the Lenexa side of Bristol Ridge West, they were all using the Bristol Ridge subdivision, which happens to be 81st Street as well, to get to Woodland. Because it's shorter than going out to 83rd, trying to get out on 83rd because of the traffic, going down 2 blocks and then turning left on Woodland to go out Woodland. We would ask that before this be approved, is that they go ahead and complete 80th Street all the way out to Monticello. That would eliminate the problem. We would also ask that you not allow a pass-through on Mill Ridge until that 80th Street is complete all the way through. That would prohibit the construction equipment coming through a highly residential neighborhood with kids that are playing out there. And as much as we like to keep our kids off the street, it happens. And big construction equipment does not have the vision that normal passenger cars. It was never built for the intention of having construction equipment run out of that. And we're talking about a very large phase 1 that will bring a lot of traffic in. And the people here that are constructing this, they will not go all the way back here to come out Valley to get out. They'll take the shortest route. All of that would be solved just by completing 80th Street all the way over to Monticello. Because Valley also will empty out into Bristol Ridge, and it passes through our subdivision as well. And again, they will take the shortcut through our subdivision.
But the city of Shawnee, if construction trucks start using Mill Ridge, if you let our staff know, they'll ticket them, and we'll sit out there.
Lenexa. It just doesn't happen. They take the shortest route out. So I would ask that we not allow a push through to Mill Ridge until 80th Street is complete. And I would also ask that by doing that, you alleviate the traffic on Valley Road that will come out again through our subdivision. And I would ask that you not allow a push through for there until you have 80th Street from this plat here all the way out to Monticello. And just as a side thing that has nothing to do with our request, when you talked about having a sidewalk on the north side of 80th Street, well, our Homes Association also represents Bristol Valley, which is located in Shawnee. On 80th Street runs into Bristol Valley. The sidewalks are on the south side of the street. So you might want to rethink that as well. But
Bristol Valley in Shawnee?
Yes.
Where is it located in there?
It'll be, there's this vacant land that's right over here.
We haven't seen any.
And it's right across, it's right off of Woodland, 80th and Woodland.
Oh, Woodland Valley.
Yes. Okay, just as a thought. But our concern is these two construction are, if you push through, you will have construction equipment coming through a subdivision that the streets are not designed to handle that kind of traffic. And lots of kids live in our subdivision. So we would ask that you require that 80th Street be pushed through to Monticello first. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else care to address this? You'd come forward and state your name and address, please. And the public hearing is about the rezoning, and I understand you bring it up, but please, we're about the rezoning.
Okay. My name's Stephen Ulmer, 8105 Mill Ridge. So I live off of Mill Ridge Street. I've contacted Lenexa, talking to some of the people over there, and I have to agree with Bill. They agree also, and they are looking into this at this time of allowing any heavy construction to go through Mill Ridge. They're not interested in doing that. They want to preserve their streets, so that's the only comment I have to say. But they are going to contact Shawnee. Lenexa will, in respect of any heavy construction company or any heavy construction development through Mill Ridge going into that phase in there. Okay?
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else care to speak on this matter? If not, then we're in commission discussion. Just for the audience out there, the one thing is the developer has agreed to the recommendations, and in those recommendations of where construction equipment can be. And I know somebody's going to cheat. Please call the city. There's a mechanism for that to be taken care of by calling the city. And I'm pretty sure we still take calls from Lenexa, so if you live in the Lenexa, you can certainly call Shawnee. Now, since we're in commission discussion, one thing of note is we will need 3 motions on this, 1 on each rezoning and 1 on the preliminary plat. Commissioner Wise.
I'll make a motion to approve Z-04-18-09 rezoning from agriculture to planned single-family per staff recommendations.
Is there a second? Commissioner John Smith.
I would second Commissioner's motion.
A motion is second to approve Z-04-18-09 rezoning from agriculture to planned single-family development. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Next, if there's further discussion, fine. If not, we can address agriculture to, Commissioner Peterson.
I move that we approve Z-05-18-09 rezoning agricultural and residential estates to professional office, PO, per staff recommendations.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Les Smith, thank you for the second. There's a motion, a second, for approval of Z-05-18-09 rezoning from AG to RE residential estates, AG and residential estates to professional office. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a couple
Commissioner
questions?
Les Smith.
Probably of staff. And first of all, I want to go back to 80th Street. If our staff is good enough with the design of that street, then it's good enough for me. But secondly, I mean, I understand the folks from Bristol Ridge. Building 80th Street first is not just as simple as building 80th Street first, I'm sure. Without, of course, my computer screen now has died altogether. But what are the challenges, I guess maybe of the developer, or the engineer, what are the challenges of building 80th Street from a topography standpoint as far as your cut and the fill standpoint and whatnot? I mean, is it a logistical nightmare to build 80th Street first? Now, set aside the hundreds of thousands of dollars just for a minute. But from a logistical standpoint, what are your challenges with that?
If you'd like to come forward and answer that question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tim. I'm looking at you.
Mr. Tucker, thank you.
Well, that's easy for us, you understand, and to not worry about the money part. Okay.
Our real goal really why we picked. I don't know how to answer your question without spending money. It just wouldn't be feasible because the entrance road on that is zero loaded on residential lots.
Right.
So there's no return for it. We've got 2 crossings, here and 1 here. Each one of them has about 15 to 20 foot of fill in order to meet to make it construction to begin with. I mean, that.
Well, they're gonna go. Yeah.
Then they will.
Well, and I appreciate that. It kind of was sort of a loaded question, because looking at a plat and saying, let's build a street first, it isn't like that. And we had an earlier applicant, although the scale is ginormously different. We want people to succeed, and at some point in time, it's not feasible to do some of the things we want you to do. And so I think it's important that we understand why. Yeah. Thanks.
Commissioner Smith, let me ask something. Are you asking him now if he will
No.
build the barricades?
Oh, no,
Would you consider building the barricades that would keep our Lenexa friends close neighbors and we still love them and all that?
Yeah.
No, that's part of the plan.
Good.
Yeah.
So there'd be barricades on these.
That's normal.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Tucker. We are still in commission. Commissioner Peterson.
I don't have any further discussion.
Oh, well, thank you. If there's no further discussion, I'm looking for a motion on the preliminary plat. Commissioner Wise.
I'll make a motion to approve pre-plat 09-18-09 preliminary plat for Bristol Highlands North, 7,900 to 8,000 blocks of Monticello Road, per staff's recommendations, including the barricades at the Mill Ridge entrance to limit construction traffic to the one entrance as discussed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Roth. There's a motion and a second for approval of pre-plat 09-1809 preliminary plat Bristol Highlands North, 7,900 to 8,000 blocks of Monticello Road, including the barricades on the two access points mentioned. Any further discussion? Commissioner Montgomery?
Oh, I think it's just one access point.
One access point?
Mill Ridge.
My mistake, just one access point. Any further discussion? Commissioner John Smith?
I think the understanding is that those barricades would be there only during construction. Is that correct in the motion?
Correct. Correct. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. We're glad all the public is here, and we hope we've helped with the issues you had. Next on the agenda is other business. Yes, Paul.
Duplex status.
Excuse me, we're still in a meeting up here. If you please keep it down. Thank you.
We're back. Need to do additions. Something that we don't use very often.
Thank you. Does staff have anything else for the commission? If not, those that you stayed get to see something you don't always see.
Oh,
Commissioner Brayley.
Sorry, I don't mean to delay the pomp and circumstance, but I did want to share this information. As most of you know, I'm participating in the Shawnee Citizen Police Academy, which I would encourage all of you to research and participate in. It's very successful. There is a waiting list. But at our last meeting, we had two really kind of core presentations. One, we had the crime analyst come in and present to us. And then the second, Officer Madrigal discussed an initiative they have concerning apartments. And so I thought, for our purposes, we have, in many of the projects that we have come before us, there's always sort of, when we have a discussion or there's some concerns about adjacencies, it usually surrounds crime, apartments, or traffic and traffic accidents. And so I would just put out there for us to consider as a body to invite the crime analyst in a general sense to give a presentation to us and give us just a good brush overview of the state of crime in Shawnee. They know what the hot spots are, and I would think if there are certain concerns that we have, if we know that there's sort of development areas that keep coming up before us, they could certainly focus in and present us with that information. But what I found most interesting that I was not aware that we had as an initiative, because I know that density and apartments seem to create challenges for us in projects that we consider. But our police force is actively out there engaging with the apartment complexes. They have a program where they have an outreach to the managers and developers of the apartment complexes that are in the city. They actually have a document that if you participate in this program, it's a document you include with your contracts with your renters that they have to sign off on that deals with things like crime, drugs, all those kinds of things. And then reports are generated and shared with the managers on a monthly basis, talking about crime in their communities. And the managers are very motivated to get rid of those bad eggs as well. So, it was nice to hear, because it would seem from what we hear that really sometimes nothing's being done. But there are officers out there actively doing what they can to improve the situations with the apartment complexes that we have within our community. So that would be another program. I think it would be great to invite Officer Madrigal to maybe come and brief us and then give us some maybe crime statistics related to apartments and density and things of that nature. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Brayley.
You're welcome.
For those of you left here, interestingly enough, 41 years, Paul Chaffee has been in public service. This is his last meeting after 41 years of doing this. We certainly appreciate his years of service, his guidance. On more than one occasion, he's bailed me out of an awkward conversation right up here and said, no, this isn't the way it is. So to think we will all miss him, and we certainly appreciate his years of service. So somebody want to adjourn this meeting? Then we have some other stuff. Commissioner Wise.
I won't make you suffer. I move for adjournment.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion is second to adjourn, and since I've been trained for this now, is there any further discussion?
We don't need any more discussion.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. We're done. Thank you very much. Paul?